Friends, we are live. CFLW, the show for this Monday, October the 13th. Rusty with you here. Hope you are having a great start to the day. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Man, oh man, have things changed and a lot to get into here with potential new patterns setting up over the area. As always, CFLW, the show is sponsored by the leading law firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. Storm season's here. You get damage of any kind, wind, hail, hurricane. Yes, the tropics are still active. If we get one of those storms, they can walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. They offer free consultation and policy reviews. You got nothing to lose, my friends. It's leanonmelaw.com if you guys would like more information. Great to see you for today. Hope you had a great weekend. Boy, what a split weekend we had. The overcast skies, still a little bit of mist and drizzle and a little downpour from time to time on Saturday. Then the drier air really kicked in starting Saturday night, and by yesterday it was absolutely sublime, and we stick with a gorgeous forecast here to kick off the week. Again, right now, looking at the satellite, skies are mainly clear. Temperatures are quite comfortable. The cold front that came through really had some significant impacts for us here, and we'll talk about what that could ultimately mean for us as we move through the rest of November. Now, I told you guys that we were going to get this developing area of low pressure off of the East Coast, and man, has that really developed. Nor'easter forming right now. We're going to talk about the problems that they're going to see up the eastern seaboard, but because we're behind this storm, of course, the counterclockwise winds around an area of low pressure, this has really brought in some significantly cooler air with the north winds that will just continue to set up shop here, and again, could be a sign that we're having some bigger changes overall in the weather pattern. We'll get into that in today's show and take a look at the tropics as well. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below what's been happening. Good afternoon, Kevin. How are you? Lakeland is in the house so that I can finally work 5 days a week with our dry season. Yeah, we're going to talk about the kind of implications of this front that came through and, what are the criteria, what are the characteristics of the dry season, and if we've really gotten into that. But certainly a drier forecast overall, and, the humidity values are lower as well. Take a look at these dew points. Again, these dew points right now are in the 50s and 60s. You got to get down to the southern quarter of the state to actually see dew points that are still in the 70s. That's kind of the delineation line of humid air. Anything below 70 degrees, you have drier air in place, just not nearly as humid out there. So you're talking about some really nice, comfortable conditions. Temperatures right now scrolling at the bottom of your screen live, upper 70s to a couple of lower 80s. You factor in that and the relative humidity values at the hour are actually only in the 40s and 50s in most spots. Now, if the dew points stay the same and temperatures climb in the afternoon, your relative humidity values will go lower and dry out in the afternoon hours. Typically speaking, right around daybreak is when you have the highest humidity values on most days because your temperature, your dew points are closer to proximity at that point in time. Hey, Chessie, how you doing? 54 degrees in Spring Hill this morning. Absolutely gorgeous, and 80 degrees right now in Spring Hill. Yeah, we slipped into some 50s. I told you on Friday's show that we were likely to get at least into the lower 60s, but have some areas flirt with the 50s, and we even got a little bit cooler than that in a couple of spots as well. Hey, Blue Goose, good afternoon to you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. St. Augustine, 77 degrees, under 71% humidity and partly cloudy skies. Hi, William, good afternoon to you as well. Getting to be a drier day there in the Bahamas. Yeah, they've had some significant rain in the in the northern Bahamas south of us over the last several days. They've actually had severe thunderstorms and just a lot of problems there because they are a little bit closer to the boundary, right? If you take a look at this boundary that's setting up shop here south of our area, and that has fed in with south winds some significant weather across portions of the central and the northern Bahamas. The boundary is moving south, so places like Grand Bahama and the Abacos and Bimini and Walker's Key are back into the drier air, and now it's going to be the central and the southern Bahamas that will see the wetter conditions. But we are all seeing the northerly winds at this point in time and the air drying out. Hey, Kyle, good afternoon to you as well. Great weather here in Ohio, 58 degrees. Love it. I gotta tell you, man, that's my kind of weather right there. You give me, I'll even take overcast skies. I was talking to my wife about this on Saturday. We were watching our youngest son play soccer, and it was overcast. There was a little bit of mist, and it was 75 degrees, and people were kind of all bundled up like this, which is, common for Florida, right? And I was like, you know what? It's still too warm for me. You give me 60 and I don't care about overcast skies. I'll take it. It's more about the temperature. Fiona, good afternoon to you, sweetheart. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great Monday. So I just want to touch real quickly on what's happening along the eastern seaboard right now. These are your current temperatures, but when I bring on the winds, it's been significant. There's a couple of different areas of low pressure. Again, this was not tropical because these lows are developing off of frontal boundaries. So this is your classic nor'easter. And these can form this early in the season. Sometimes they can be later. Obviously, if they're deeper into the winter months, you get a lot more snowfall, but you're talking about huge problems from the Carolinas all the way up towards the New England coastline, including places like Cape Cod. Again, where you have wind gusts right now along the coast, 40, close to 50 miles an hour. Yesterday, we had 50 and 60 mile an hour winds. Some of that is onshore wind, so you're getting inundation with flooding. You're getting extremely heavy rain and flooding issues there. And then you go even farther north, right? Now you get into some of the higher elevations of, places like New Hampshire and Vermont, and you've got some 60 plus mile an hour winds in some of the higher elevation areas. So it's just a significant storm for the eastern seaboard overall, but the big problems are along the coast with the onshore winds in some areas leading to some water inundation, coastal flooding. Obviously, surf conditions are out of control, and then you have some significant rainfall to go along with it. And again, we kind of sit and we watch all of that spin away from our area as we are in store for the northerly winds and the drier air. As always, guys, we have our live cameras here at CFLW. Now, my system is a little weird. Typically, when I want to switch computers, there's this little X button that is not showing up anymore. There's been a couple of weird things lately. Anyway, let's take a look at our cameras. Get myself off camera. Live look outside the winter garden. Look, I gotta be honest, all four cameras are gonna show you about the same thing, but when it's this pristine, we gotta take a look at this. Nothing but blue sky out there, probably 5 to 10% cloud coverage in most areas in central Florida. So gorgeous shot there looking off towards the west. Bit of a breeze, but nothing crazy. There'll actually be more wind by midweek, and we'll talk about that coming up. Beautiful shot from Winter Park and the lean log cam. Again, looking back to the east-southeast from this camera. Once again, just a few, and I mean a few fair weather clouds, but a lot of sunshine glistening off the old camera lens. Again, right along the immediate east coast as we're looking deep from the Conway cam and southeast sides of Orlando. Again, a little bit of moisture there, but it's really, really dry. Subsidence, sinking air, drier air with the north winds, lower humidity values, a beautiful afternoon. Just an absolutely fantastic forecast ahead for the attractions area as well. Not expecting any issues there, just a lot of dry conditions for the most part. Now look, let me also be clear about this too. We're going to talk about, are we transitioning into the dry season? I will say that regardless, if you've been holding off any plans to do any big projects outdoors, now is your time to start thinking about doing that if you have this week off, because it is going to be filled with sunshine, really comfortable conditions overall for us here, and no threat for anything tropically, at least in the short term, to try and put a snag in that and to, again, bring us the opportunity for more rain, bring us the opportunity to kind of elevate the humidity values again. And obviously, one thing that we talk about this time of the year is, are the sea breeze mechanisms still in play to provide us those daily showers and storms? One thing I want to talk about real quickly is we still have the coastal issues in some areas. Now, we still have some small craft advisories in the offshore waters, for places like Brevard County at this point in time. Let me bring on those active alerts. Hopefully they'll load up. Just a rip current statement at this point in time. Nothing as significant as what we have had. Same situation for Flagler County, where you have the rip current statement, but you still have the coastal flood advisory. Now, it is going to go all the way until Wednesday morning for coastal Flagler and St. John's, because you still are going to have the opportunity here for a little bit of an onshore breeze and to cause a couple of issues there. So again, the impacts, flooding of lots, parks, and roads with only isolated road closures expected, but the rip current risk is going to be extremely high. And again, that's for coastal Flagler and the southeast coastal St. John's areas. So, the bottom line is, again, if you can avoid the immediate coast in these areas, that's probably a great idea. Still gonna be some coastal road closures in these spots, but otherwise we're doing okay. And again, here's that coastal flood advisory here as well. I don't think that there's anything different here. There's still gonna be for inland Flagler and eastern Putnam counties. Again, Same situation, nothing changes through 6 a.m. on Wednesday. So just wanted to highlight that. But other than that, we're looking great. Obviously, there's no threat for any heavy rainfall here. And just to kind of give you guys a real quick idea here, these local storm reports towards Long Island, just to give you an idea of what they've been seeing. So you got wind damage here. I know there's a couple of other ones too. Tree down, blocking. So, I mean, you're just, you know, hopefully we don't see a lot of greens on this map, right? Which is going to be a lot of flooding. But that is a concern through a lot of that part of the country, right? You know, it's going to be a potential issue there. And you can see that up and down the eastern seaboard, you've got small craft advisories, the rip current risk, and hopefully not more than that in the flooding issue. But from time to time, you're going to get a couple of areas here. Beach hazard statement, again, coastal flood warning, breaking waves of 7 to 9 feet. We've seen that. That's what that storm, that nor'easter, is going to bring. All right. So now let's kind of talk about, actually, that's not exactly where I want to be. This is where I want to be. Now let's kind of talk about the transition and the changes that have occurred in our weather lately, right? We've had this north wind come through with a significant cold front. And the question that I posed at the thumbnail is, have we hit the dry season? And if you guys don't know, maybe you're new to Florida, or maybe it's just something that you don't think about very often, is that we really have two distinct seasons here in Florida. We have the wet season and we have the dry season. And typically we get at least 75% of our rain during the wet season. And the biggest reason why we get that is we have the sea breeze storms that develop, bringing us the localized shower and thunderstorm chances each and every afternoon. Sometimes they don't develop. Sometimes the storms are very localized to one east coast or the other. But obviously in the heart of the summer months, we get fairly active, pronounced thunderstorms with locally heavy rainfall, flooding rain, severe storms, you know, gusty winds, hail, all of that kind of stuff. But the first fronts of fall can begin to change that up. So I want to take a look real quickly at what is the definition of the dry season compared to the wet season, okay? So the characteristics of the dry season here in Central Florida is arrival of cold fronts that bring drier air, cooler temperatures, and lower humidity. We obviously can get a couple of fronts, especially in September, that can push across the state, but does it really bring in drier air? Does it really cool the temperatures down, especially in the morning hours, and do the humidity values fall? One of the signs of that is that you get morning lows that are in the 60s. A lot of times the fronts that come in September, they're still not pushing in colder, drier air. So your morning lows are still right around 70, 72 degrees in a lot of spots. So Chessie talked about, we had some 50s this morning as well. And hi, Amy, how are you? I hope you're doing well. But that is a sign when you start to see that cooler air, especially in the morning hours, and obviously it equates to, generally speaking, cooler afternoons as well. Another big thing is that it shuts off the sea breeze storm mechanism, right? We don't develop the sea breezes along both coasts that push inland every day to provide that boundary for the thunderstorms to develop. And obviously, even if the sea breezes try and develop and push inland, when you're talking about lower humidity air, drier air, and subsidence or sinking in the atmosphere, that's not going to allow those local sea breezes to develop and lift the moisture in the atmosphere to produce the thunderstorm. So in essence, it helps to shut off the sea breeze storm mechanism. Now, the median date for the dry season to begin in Orlando is October the 15th. We're obviously right there. And most other Central Florida cities are within a few days. You know, Daytona Beach, like October 17th, Melbourne, October 18th. I could be off a day or two with those. It doesn't really matter. It's typically mid-October. Now, there are times we can get false, dry seasons to begin, especially in early October. There are times we can get a strong cold front to come in to dry things out for at least a few days. But then we do start to see more moisture-laden air return mid to late October, and it is typically later in October that the dry season really begins. But the front that came through Saturday and Sunday has all the signs that we are beginning the dry season here in Central Florida. Climatologically, it's right about that time of the year, but just looking appreciably at what the weather has brought, and you guys can feel the difference. You know what it's like outside. That's a different cold front that came through this weekend. Now look, we can still see tropical moisture and impacts. It is still hurricane season. October is still a very busy month climatologically, and I'm going to show you guys tropically what could be still developing down the road. Now, there is nothing in the short term that I feel is going to impact Florida in any way, but later into October, there's at least the opportunity, if we don't even get direct impacts from a tropical system, that more tropical moisture could come back from the south and, put a little bit of a wrench in the quote unquote dry season plans, at least in the short term. Then we start to look at cold fronts coming in, and these cold fronts can arrive at any point in time all the way through the early portions of the spring season. And these cold fronts are going to be the drivers now, the mechanisms for the rain and storms, but they also come with the risk for severe weather as well. We have a kind of a fall and an early spring season with these cold fronts that actually can bring the worst weather with them, especially in the forms of tornadoes. So we have to watch out for the cold fronts that come in with lines of showers and storms and the opportunity for some rotating storms and some tornadic activity as well. So we kind of shut off the daily chance for storms in the area, but the cold fronts can bring their own hazards. They're a little bit easier to track, right? We can see the storms just kind of coming through in a line, and then the opportunity to see, some more severe weather with those. But those are obviously a little bit more infrequent at this time of the year, at least to begin with. So let's talk about what we're going to see for the next couple of days and then get into the tropics. As always, you guys have a specific question, let me know as well. She says, outside of August, where it's been dry all year for the most part. That, I do want to touch on that, and thank you for reminding me. So, look, we are still dry out in the western side of the state. There's no doubt about that, right? Let me, just trying to figure out the easiest way to show you guys this. Let's see. I have all these tabs, and I always forget which one is which. All right, let me turn off the advisories. Again, central and the western sides of the area have been wet enough where we're not in any kind of drought. Latest report is we're still abnormally dry in a lot of western areas, okay? So likely this is only going to get worse again because now we're not going to see the sea breeze storms bring the convective, heavier shower opportunity here, right? You might need a late season tropical system, again, if it's not going to directly impact us, to bring us some moisture to the west coast. But certainly western areas from the Nature Coast back down to Tampa Bay have been much drier over the summer and the early part of fall compared to the I-4 corridor and I-95. So you got the abnormally dry conditions. And again, that does basically include, the southern half of Marion, all of Citrus, most of Sumter, all of Hernando, most of Pasco, western half of Hillsborough, all of Pinellas County, most of Manatee, all of Sarasota County. So you get the idea that these areas have been drier. Now, does this mean it's time to kick back in the sprinklers? Well, let's kind of wait and see a little bit here. Again, we've had some pretty good rainfall in most areas out west. You might have to do that a little bit earlier if you want the grass to be a little bit greener. So let's get into the models here. First thing we're going to look at is what's happening in our area over the next several days. Is there any chance for rain in the short term? So we just fire that up real quick. All right, so here we go, our HERB model, high resolution rapid refresh, right? Just kind of show you again along that boundary, that area of low pressure right off of the coast, still spinning in. Most significant impacts will be north of that low. So, the Boston area, New England in general, likely to get hammered pretty hard. For us, just like we had Saturday, right? We're still on the western periphery of this, and a couple of sprinkles could still be trying to drive in, but I expect that to stay off of our East Coast. I don't think that there's a chance for any rain. The air is just a little bit too dry. Now, the HERB model tries to back in a little bit of very light sprinkle activity along our immediate coast on Wednesday morning. I think it's a very low chance. I don't think it's likely to happen, but if you do live in like Brevard or Indian River County, that is the area that could get a little bit of cloud coverage and a few fast-moving sprinkles on Wednesday morning. Other areas to the north along our coast, again, a sprinkle or two with just a little bit of cloud coverage on Wednesday morning, but I think the sunshine quickly returns. And if you live I-4 West, Tampa, St. Pete, Spring Hill, Crystal River, the Villages, nothing but sunshine the next several days. Now, the one thing that will change is beginning on Wednesday, we're going to kick up the winds just a little bit more. This will bring in a little bit windier conditions on Wednesday. Let me show you that and bring up these wind gusts and loop that up for you guys. So the next couple of afternoons, the wind should be fairly calm, but you can start to see some of these greens kind of back building off towards the west, and that's likely to bring some 15 to 20 mile-an-hour winds along the coast, maybe a higher gust from time to time on Wednesday. Out of the next couple of days, Wednesday and into Thursday is when I expect there to be the breezier conditions. Winds are actually likely to even freshen up through the day Wednesday and into Thursday. Again, this HER model only takes you out 48 hours, so into Wednesday morning from the latest run. I can switch over to the GFS here real quick. Look at the wind gusts here and just take it out a little bit deeper in time. So let's go to Thursday evening with this, loop it up. Again, what you're really looking for are the greens, because those are going to be winds of over 20, kind of slipping back into the area here midweek, right? Hope everyone's doing well. Again, appreciate you guys taking a bit of your Monday and joining me here for CFLW, the show. Some gorgeous weather on the way for this week. So you can clearly see as we get into Thursday, a little bit more green on this map. So winds are going to be freshening up. They'll be coming out of the east-northeast for the most part. Let me show you that as well. Let's just do this. Yes, please. But what happened to the fill? All right. They're together. They're copacetic. This is just going to give you the wind direction as well if these arrows cooperate and pop on. But it's still going to be a north wind is what I'm trying to get at. There'll be a little bit of an easterly component to it, but it's still going to be drier air, mainly impacting the coast. But we'll get some fresher winds move across the body of the state throughout late Wednesday and into Thursday. Now, temperatures might come up a little bit with this because the humidity values might rise a little bit. Even with a north wind coming off of the Atlantic, you are tapping into a little bit relatively, more humidity values there and sea surface temperatures that are still warm for this time of the year, obviously warmer than what we would see for morning lows. So you just kind of drag in a little bit of humidity overall, even though the air is dry, there's not a lot of lift in the atmosphere. So morning lows could come up a little bit with this wind beginning to pick up on Wednesday and Thursday. But again, it's all a bit of an easterly breeze. The blues are going to be up to about 15 mile-an-hour winds. The greens get you into that 20 plus from time to time. I don't expect the winds over 20 to be persistent late Wednesday and into Thursday, but just a breezier Thursday overall as well. All right, so let's take a look at your city by city forecast for you guys. Got a couple of those for you here. Guess what? It's been a while since I've been able to break out the full sunshine icon, right? It's been a while, but here we go. Again, attractions forecast looks absolutely fantastic. Plenty of sunshine the next couple of days. 65 the morning low or lower in Orlando, 66 on Thursday, but 85 tomorrow, 83 on Wednesday. And again, sunny and breezy conditions on Thursday, about 84 there for the daytime high. In the Villages, it's even nicer. Obviously, the mornings are going to be great for morning rounds of golf, great for tennis in the afternoon. Comfortable days, abundant sunshine, and then the breeze on Thursday. 85 the high tomorrow, 84 on Wednesday and Thursday, morning lows in the lower 60s. Again, if you've been looking for a stretch of weather to get some work done outdoors, get some gardening work done, get some outside projects done, you've got this at least this week. For Lakeland, looking fantastic there. Sunny and dry tomorrow. Great morning on Wednesday, all the way down to 62 degrees. Look, there'll be some areas that slip into the 50s, no doubt about it. Thursday, 64. Daytime highs in the mid 80s. A little bit warmer there inland, a little bit farther south, but not bad. Again, pleasant day, maybe a little bit of a breeze in Lakeland late on Thursday afternoon, but nothing that's going to be outrageous. Again, beautiful, beautiful weather and dry conditions across the area as well. Let's take a look at some of these morning lows, and then I want to get into the tropics real quick for you guys as well. So I'm going to switch back over to the HER bottle. Let's dump off this. Get into temperatures, and then tomorrow morning. All right, so this is the HER model tomorrow morning for basically morning lows. Let's go 7 a.m. here. Why not? All right. Again, just kind of an average, but you see these blues? There's your 50s. Now, again, could they be farther south? Absolutely. But towards Gainesville, even to Nellen and Crystal River and Homosassa Springs and Hernando and Inverness, all looking at 50s there. The villages, it'll be close. Leesburg. So Jesse had a cooler morning. The model here is coming in around 61 for Spring Hill. But again, you know, there can be differences in the thermometers. Outlying areas can be a little bit cooler. I think upper 50s to lower 60s here, but even into Tampa, you know, 62 tomorrow morning. Palm Harbor, 62. Isn't that great? Kissimmee, 62. A lot of very homogeneous numbers here. Again, slightly warmer along the coast, bit of an onshore breeze, but still you get inland just from the coast, and I mean just a mile or two, and your temperature is going to be a lot cooler. Let me give you an idea about that, right? So if you go close to the coastline off the Cape, you're probably in the lower 70s, but you get to Mims and they're in at 64. So there's a potential 10-degree temperature difference here just because of that little bit of an onshore breeze, and the temperatures on the water this time of the year are still outrageously warm, relatively speaking. You know, not bad in Merritt Island, but you get inland towards Suntree and Vieira, and now you're in the low 60s, mid 60s at worst. Great weather indeed. Wedgefielded at 63. You guys get the idea. Beautiful start to the day for tomorrow. All right, now I want to talk about the tropics. So we're gonna switch things around here. Hopefully I get all that off. Now, guess what? We have another tropical storm. Lorenzo has formed. How about that? If my math is correct, what has happened? So, is that the 12th named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season? Jeez, so bad. They all run together. Anyway, Lorenzo is not a problem. This is your classic fish storm. Going to stay a tropical storm, quickly recurving to the north, absolutely dissipating in the middle of the Atlantic. Not a problem whatsoever, right? A couple of things I'll be watching on the Media Mundo channel is you have some disturbed weather here, but the one that will likely have me a little bit more concerned overall is this tropical wave coming off the West African coast, okay? Now, we're talking about thousands and thousands of miles from Florida. Nothing in the short term, and what I mean by short term is this week, has me at all interested on bringing any impacts to the Gulf Coast states, Florida in general, anywhere close to our region. That being said, and because you guys are very sophisticated folks, I'm going to show you guys the GFS model here. Now, on the Media Mundo channel, I don't get a lot into getting beyond 7 to 10 days with the models. It doesn't really do a lot of good when you're trying to chase storms, if you will. If you're always looking in that 14 plus day time frame, there's inherent model bias to try and produce cyclogenesis or storms. So I typically don't go that far out because, you know, I don't want to be someone who's known to just be like, oh, he's trying to hype up an area that, you know, may never develop. And a lot of the times it doesn't. What I'm showing you on this is we've talked about the fact that we're likely into the dry season now because we've kind of checked off all of those boxes, but what could still throw some moisture and some rain in our area? And obviously in October, that could be the tropics, okay? So for the week ahead, I don't expect there to be any issues tropically in our area, but down the road, let me show you what might be happening here. And again, while you guys are here, I appreciate you taking a quick second and hit that like button for me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Please join our fantastic community. Love all of those who are watching. Super love those who are in the chat right now. The interaction is why I do this. So if you guys have a question about the forecast, you just want to drop in and say hi, don't be a wallflower. Come in and join this fantastic community we're building here at CFLW. So down the road, and if this holds together as far as on the models, I'll be talking more about this starting on Friday's show. But you can clearly see on the GFS model that we got ourselves a little bit of an interesting situation potentially developing in the Caribbean about 10 days from now at the earliest, right? You can start to see that development maybe as early as 8 days, but really trying to wrap up. Now, this is still just one model run of the GFS, which can be completely variable towards the end of the run. But the European model is also showing some signs of development in the Caribbean at the same point in time. So why I'm showing you this is that both main global models have potential tropical development about 10 days out in the Caribbean. So again, it's taking, because this is a very long model run, it's taking a little bit of time. I didn't load it up ahead of time, only loaded up the short term. So you're seeing the time frame here. But again, on the GFS, you start to get a pretty significant storm beginning to move into the southeastern Gulf about, what is today, the 13th? About 13, 14 days away. Now look, there's nothing to discuss more than this, but I wanted to point out the fact that in October, if we're gonna get additional heavier rain and storms, it's likely to be from a tropical system, and the global models are hinting at that possibility. Now this on the GFS would be a significant storm, okay? What you see is, what else is very common this time of the year? A cold front trying to pick up the storm and move it just east of the area before it comes up. Now, again, we're so far away, we don't want to talk about specific mechanisms, but I did want to point out that the GFS and the European models are showing potential development in the Caribbean, starting maybe as early as 8 days from now, certainly around 10 days from now, and in general, carrying it north and west and closer to the Gulf, closer to our area, closer to the Southeast United States in general, about 13, 14 days from now. All right. Obviously, plenty of time to see if this even happens. The last couple of model runs of both have shown this, which is why I'm showing this to you now, but we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully it gets nowhere near us. But again, what is a mechanism that can throw a lot more rain and stormy weather in, even if the dry season is hit? It's the tropics. Anyone have any questions about that? Again, plenty of time to see if this actually develops. But, that's where we look this time of the year. If we've hit the dry season, the rest of October, even into the first week of November, something tropical. And again, in November, you can get a little something to spin up even in the Gulf, and that just throws a lot of moisture our way. Frontal boundaries that stall out could do the same thing. Okay. Let's see here. If no one else has any other questions about the forecast, I think we are just in store for what's going to be a nice week ahead. We'll take it while we can get it and see how it goes from there. All right, my friends. If that's going to do it, I will say thank you very much for watching. I'll remind you guys that CFLW, the show, is sponsored by the lead law firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. Look, we can still get storms in the area, and when you do, they can walk you through the insurance claim process, even if you've been in an auto accident. So just don't think storms with these guys. They're not a one-trick pony by any means. You want to support someone who supports the channel, I do encourage you guys to check out leanomnilaw.com for more information. I appreciate all my friends watching so far in the chat. Thank you so much. Hi, Bombo Blast. How you doing? I appreciate you. Yep. Looks like Central Florida will be in go for a while here. Great forecast. Yeah, absolutely. Ocala, fantastic. You got it, Chessie. Appreciate it. Thank you all, my friends. Have a great rest of your day. I'll be back on Friday for CFLW, the show at 1 o'clock. We'll be talking a lot more about the tropics. We'll be talking a lot more about if we're going to see a front anytime soon to bring us some rain. Until then, enjoy some fantastic weather. Get outside. Kick the kids outside. Enjoy the afternoons, my friends. Have a great one. I'll see you guys on Friday.